Well, hello to the good people over the internet. Today we have with us none other than Meera Desai with us. She's a performing artist and a singer-songwriter. Thank you so much, Meera, for joining. It means a lot.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you. Tell people the incident that happened before we were starting the podcast, the airport one.
Oh, yes. I went to the air. Well, I was supposed to go to Bombay today, and I was like very rushing and everything. I had my Guruji's class in the morning, so I planned very properly. कि bag pack करके सो जाने, or whatever. So jana. Sorry, I'm Gujarati, not Hindi. I mean, I speak Gujarati, not Hindi. But anyway, so packed everything, went to the airport, got through the long check-in line, got to the counter, handed the lady my phone, and she said, she kept looking for the booking. She said, "Ma'am, आपने March 23rd के लिए किया है, not Feb 23rd." So yeah, it was insane. And then I had received a warning before that also, that my boyfriend had called me before, and he told me, "Hey, something crazy happened to me. I'm going to a gig, and they booked me, on a flight for like the next month by mistake." So then I'm like, "Oh, that's crazy." He's like, "You should probably check your booking as well." I'm like, no, I booked it like last week, so it couldn't
मैं
have
देख
been.
लूंगा उसके बाद उसके बाद
Overconfidence.
surprise. Cool. So that's the very good head start to our podcast. I saw you've. I heard of some of your songs. You've recently released a lot of singles. I've seen. You're also a very Indian classical trained vocalist by from Instagram bio I've seen. So, if you could like take all of us back to how did you start getting into music? Like where you born into a family of music, you grew up with music, or you had a breakup and then thought of, "Nahi, I'll become a Devdas now and will become a musician or something of that sort."
So I actually started learning Indian classical a little later in life. I started out learning mostly Western classical. I was in choirs, went into vocal jazz. I grew up in the U.S. in this place called Long Island, and the specific
Long
school
Island.
that I had, yeah, in New York. Did I say, or the U.S. anyway? But in New York, in this school called Herrick's High School, which is very well known for its music. So I was lucky enough to be like kind of have a lot of choices for choirs and music things in general. So I played the violin, was in choir, women's choir, jazz, whatever I could like convince my parents to put me in. So I had a lot of Western kind of input for the first like maybe 17 years of my life, 16, 17 years of my life. And then after that, I mean, I was always, my mom sings, not professionally, but she like, she just loves singing. And so when I was young, when I was like a child, she would teach me bhajans and like old Bollywood songs and things like that. So I had, some of that coming in, but I never wanted to do classical music, though my mom was always like, "Why don't you try Indian classical? Why don't you try Indian classical?" I'm like, "No, I can only do one. I can only do Western or Indian." And then she finally kind of just started looking for a Indian classical music school, and then I still said no, so she just started learning. And long story short, I went then to one of the concerts of that the person who's running it, which is my now Bade Guruji, is Pandit Jasraj ji, who So then I was like, oh my goodness, I have to do this.
Let's do it.
So yeah, so then that kind of opened me up to to that curiosity, and then I started learning through his school, through my then Guruji, Pandita Tripti Mukherjee, and then now the journey, it's a long journey, but now I've been in Ahmedabad for 5 years, learning with my Guruji Shiv Vikas Parikh. So it's been a lovely kind of I would say behind the scenes journey, because I haven't like posted a lot about it. I know professionally I do a lot of like Western classical and not Western classical, but like Western stuff and jazz and English music, right? But I think like vocal technique wise, vocal health wise, emotional health wise, spiritually, you know, that those lessons in that world has like influenced me, you know.
Oh, spiritual beginning, huh? Cool. Uh, so your entire childhood spent outside India.
Yeah, I moved to India when I was 21,
Mm-hmm.
21,
Cool.
22. Yeah.
Mm. Oh, cool. So you already always like had the roots of Indian music embedded somewhere in your neurons because you know India being India, we have very much प्यार हो जाता है यहाँ के music and culture से. So even if people stay outside, they always come back to the roots. And that's a good thing, right? And also you have been
Yeah.
trained under some, I mean, godly people, idols of the entire world,
I
I should say. And then how did you develop? Like you were also like, weren't you like bombarded with Western style of music and Indian? How did you like manage? कि यार मेरे को ना एक ही चीज करना है ढंग से करना है. So how did you made the choice?
Yeah, so I think, well, when I started learning Indian classical music, maybe it was a blessing that I didn't do it before. Maybe at that time I would have said, no, it's too like different, and you know, I don't want to do two things. But at this point, I was already kind of, I've done years and years and years of Western practice, so I'm at a certain like level of understanding where I know at least what it is, you know, so I can judge for myself that okay, I am at this level, or I like this, or I don't like this, right? And then I was kind of beginning my journey in Indian classical. So I had that, I didn't have to kind of choose that, okay, do I want to do this path or this path? I was like, okay, I have this foundation. Now let me try to add to it, you know, and let me try to understand music in like a different way, you know. Um, yeah. What was the question?
This was the question. How did you like came to a choice?
Yeah. So I was saying that I never had to make a choice. The time that I did, I don't think I've consciously made a choice of doing, no, I am not doing this, but I am doing this. It's just always been kind of how my, you know, life has played out. So like I after I started learning Indian classical, I, you know, in 2012-ish, right? They kind of just like let it go. I didn't have like, I guess, professional aspirations for it, Indian classical then, which was nice. I was kind of just doing it for the knowledge, and I was just enjoying this like completely opening up of like my musical ear in a different way.
Mhm.
So you know, and I was doing like in college, I was doing a cappella group, and I was in a choir in college. So I was able to do both things separately, like in terms of scheduling and time, like even vocal technique wise, since again I had been learning Western for so long, I had that technique and I could like kind of switch it off for a little bit, and then, you know, and then go into kind of in classical mode and really learn that technique. Uh, yeah. So, and then the only other time I had to actually choose was, I guess, when I started like my professional career, right? So I did ask myself questions at that time, that, you know, obviously I started really, really professionally singing and writing when I came to India. I came in, I think, 2017. I really don't have a good sense of time, but I came in 2017 and I
That's
kind of
why the
started.
23rd March and the 23rd February confusion. Huh?
Oh my God, it's all coming together.
Contradiction.
Yeah,
Cool.
so when I came here, and then started professionally writing and performing, I did have to, obviously it's a you know, starting a career is a time commitment and just general commitment, right? So I did have to ask myself, being in India, do I want to go into more classical professional space? Do I want to go into a Bollywood semi-classical professional space, or do I want to kind of keep dedicating my time to something that I have these roots in and that I can, you know, keep building on? So that's what I then decided to do, you know, while still continuing my like learning of classical and understanding of classical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. So you kind of had a healthy diet of musical choices. Mhm. Cool. Mm. In terms of you had really put out a very interesting point there. That is, you say that you asked questions when you were, so you were 21 or 22, you said, when you were back in India and you were thinking of starting your career professionally as a musician. What
Yeah, I
made
guess 20.
you, yeah. So what made you what questions did you ask yourself? If you would like to share that, that would be really great, because ultimately a lot of artists start out with a good dream, but then divert themselves to trends and shit and all of that, and then just ruin their art, like for anything, for likes. And yeah, which me as an artist, I don't like. I guess you also is the same with you. What are your thoughts on this? Like, what did you ask
It's a
yourself? And
compromise. Always a compromise. But yeah. What did I ask myself? Well, so I think there were some more than me asking myself at first. I think it was obviously a lot of people who knew me and who were like, friends, teachers, my guruji, they were invested in like trying to help me be successful and help me like be what I want to be eventually, right? So they were, I think, the ones who like were posing those important questions. I of course was thinking them, but it's those kind of questions that are kind of in your head and you're like, oh, what should I do? What shouldn't I do? But the things that I really appreciated was I had those people in my life that were kind of honest with me and asked my parents as well. So all of those conversations that we had forced me to think about like a couple of questions. Yeah. One, to think about what came naturally to me, obviously, right? And then two, what subconsciously I gravitated to. For example, like writing. Like I would at that time didn't have the proficiency or knowledge to maybe just sit down and I'm just chilling and I have like maybe a bandish come to me. Right, that would not come to me. But if I'm sitting, chilling, I would constantly like, be writing in my head and recording these little tidbits. So obviously, that's one thing that, comes naturally to me, right? And then second, of course, what you have the knowledge of. And my Western knowledge at that time, applicability wise, was definitely like much higher, wasn't amazing, of course, but it was something that you're like, what do I want to invest in learning professionally, invest my professional resources in? Okay, it makes sense to do more of a Western focused for professionals, right? And then the third was, I think, obviously there were financial questions, like from my parents, from myself,
that's the
and
India
I think
being, that's the most important question. Paisa kitna?
Oh yeah, and so I actually am very very lucky that my parents are and have always been like very very supportive of me while also being practical. So I know we did have that conversation that yeah, you are in India now and you are here for a reason. You want to continue your classical journey in this place because you have moved here and you're not thinking of moving back. So, and that English music is not profitable per se here, right? So then we had to look into, I spoke to a couple of people, I had talks with like some indie musicians at that time, where the indie scene is so supportive that I literally just asked them, hey, I'm just starting out in my career. Like, I know being an indie musician is not like gonna shoot me to fame or wealth and like notoriety, right? So then they kind of said that no, like there is a way to sustain yourself. Is that you just have to kind of like diversify diversify your income streams, diversify your like skill set and things like that, right? So yeah, I think a lot of those questions were posed, came from within, came from without, so all of those things coming together, I think, and also, of course, opportunities is one thing that like is huge, right? Because that also depends on, things depend on that so much, right? Just like kind of getting lucky, also meeting the right people at the right time, and so the opportunities also started to present themselves more in like the English original music space. And that time there was a festival called Fangirl Music Festival in 2019, yeah. So that kind of launched me into writing, into performing. That was my first like real full original set performance, and it gave me like a taste of, after answering all those questions or start being at the beginning of answering those questions, like actually seeing it in play, because like the last question that you have to ask is that, yeah, you enjoy it and you have like theoretically like you want to do it, but like physically, is this something that you can do? And like, so then yeah, that was the final question of like performing wise. Yeah, well, I want to be on the stage. I want to be sharing that music, Yeah.
And the more practical advice would be practice for that.
Oh yeah.
That's the fifth one. Practice karo. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
In terms of, what are your thoughts on making money as a musician?
Yeah, I mean, like they said, like I don't think it's practical to think that you can make money as a English only, original music only making musician in India. I mean, anywhere really. If you're just relying on like playing shows that like that, I honestly don't know if it's. I think it might be possible after being in the industry for maybe like 4 or 5 years, 6 years, like getting if you have like a really strong brand, if you're really strong,
if marketed yourself properly, then
yeah, right. And if you're talented, like, and that's
if you have
but
practiced
honestly,
instead of wasting time.
yeah, if you put in the work, right? But putting in the work obviously always doesn't always do it. You're like trendy at that time, if you're making the kind of music people are listening to. So there's so many variables, I think, in becoming commercially successful based only on your music, right? So and based only on your performing your music, right? So luckily there's a lot of other things that musicians can do, right? There's like voice-based voiceovers, or writing songs, commission
Jingles
writing, jingles, yeah, like having someone recently contacted me about writing a song for like their friend, so like you get like a, which is really really cool, fun to do. Teaching is a big part of also what I do, and luckily I really enjoy it also. So I know
you're
sometimes
the
it's
faculty
not.
of Goa Jazz Academy. I saw that.
Yeah. So
that's a really lovely place, huh?
oh, it's great. It's lovely. Yeah. But yeah, right. So not everyone loves teaching, or not everyone loves doing voiceover. So basically, like a mix of some skills that you're good at, things you like to do, and then things that you like. When those two meet, I think that's what my dad said in the beginning, where he's like, like there's things that you like to do, things that you're good at, and then like you just have to see like where they meet.
Yeah.
Right. So there are. Yeah, it's really good. So there are like a lot of different things, but it does require one, like time put in, skills learned. Like I'm still obviously learning, even Western wise, right? Like I'm constant, like you're constantly improving your skill set, and like so yeah, time spent, skills learned, contacts being made, and like
and
updating yourself
sometimes. Yeah.
Huh?
Being shameless sometimes, that's also important.
Yeah, being shameless, or at least like putting yourself out there, which is really hard for me to do, obviously. But it's just, I think, like starting that process, and even meeting people casually, like just making sure that people know that, oh, you're in this city, oh, you're in this city, oh, this is what you are doing, right? Just like putting yourself out there. Yeah, there's a lot of different, and then of course there's like the commercial route. If you enjoy playing like covers, or if you have that kind of like voice and have that good audience interaction skills, then there's always, people are always looking for, especially in that season time of like wintry things, so people are always looking for to play at their venues. So I mean, like I could go on, right? Like there's if you're creative enough, if you're not creative enough, but if you're out there enough, you will find those opportunities. I think that's what so, but it is I guess time consuming to do all that. Of course, it's not like something that you can just like
that's what we always suffer as artists. We want everything nahi ye 6 mahine mein hona chahiye, and we later realize कि नहीं होता 6 mahine में, time लगता है.
I know, and I think it's that, like, I mean, it's also good that those expectations are there, because like you've had, I mean, we've all had those points that those expectations aren't there, and then you feel like, oh, kuch nahi ho raha hai, no one's contacting me, right? um but so like
At least
sometimes it is,
it gives you a drive to, chalo, main hi pooch
yeah,
leta
it
hu.
gives you drive, exactly. And sometimes it is like that, what is that, self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like, no, it will happen, and then like some opportunity does pop up, so like you never know.
And if all of this doesn't work out, loot a bank then. That's the one advice from my end.
Or just start like doing
OnlyFans.
trending, be on trend. I think that's the thing that like I really hard to struggle with, is like, even you were saying that like like being trending, or like being like doing the things that people want to hear even if you don't want to do them, right? I struggle with that like
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
very often.
Yeah.
Especially now when I'm kind of like planning a couple more releases, and like really looking into, okay, what is like what, like when people see my music, or my, whatever I release, like what, like, is there something that, oh, they'll hear the song and they'll be like, oh, that sounds like Meera, or that, because that's important,
Ah.
right? To have
Yeah.
artists,
That
some
identification that, okay, this is the particular
identification,
sound
right?
that connects me to that artist. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So those things are important when you're like looking at yourself, and because it's not that nobody, like, I mean, trends have started for a reason, right? It's because someone is doing their own thing and it like works, right? But and like they just keep on doing that thing, and then that becomes a trend, right? So like I think I'm getting lost in this thought, but that's basically what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
I'm going around and around.
Really fantastic point. Talk us through about your releases. How many singles have you released till now? For the people who haven't listened to your songs, I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. So back in 2019, the first thing I ever released was an EP of 4 songs that I had written like through school times and in college, and then came to Ahmedabad. Then I met this producer named Rag Sethi. He plays guitar. He also produces, and then that was like our like first thing that we just kind of did together. Like I said, there's like a festival.
So
And
you
then through
produce
that,
and like master the songs from a producer. You do it yourself. You have a home studio, or like you go to a studio.
no, so I have like a simple home setup for like recording demos and everything now, but at that time I had nothing, zero. So I
Plus the
was,
equipments are costly, man.
yeah, they're very
Ah,
expensive, and I think you just have to like justify getting them as an investment when you earn
exactly.
those,
Exactly.
you know. Uh, and so yeah, so back then I was just a songwriter. I didn't know anything about. I knew like chord shapes. I didn't know anything about actual, guitar things. So then I was like very lucky to meet this guy who's like, oh yeah, I'm a great guitarist and I also produce songs. And I think at that time he was also kind of at the beginning of his journey of like co-writing, right? We did a lot of like super rearrangements of things. So I kind of came to him with my songs, and I said, hey, these are my songs. They're literally like, like the songs that are like, right? So that was, and I mean, there's space for it, and I love that. But at the level that I was able to write at, I was not able to like play guitar, honestly, right? So I came to him, and then we sat and rearranged those songs, and it was a really really good like experience of working with someone else with your music, So that was like a very fun beginning thing. It's cool that there was an output to that too, because I think at the beginning of like when you're working with people, there's not always that output, right? So when you're like jamming with people, you're like, oh yeah, you do the jam, and then okay, like nothing for 3 months, So this is cool that that there is that output, and obviously, you're like, okay, maybe that's not my sound now, or at that time I couldn't articulate that I wanted this kind of chord there, and not that kind of chord.
Just
So it
artist
was,
things.
yeah, just hashtag. Um, but yeah, so that was the first thing I ever released. Those 4 songs, and they're really like the first things I ever wrote, and it's really special and nice and all. And
Nice and all.
then the and then single that I released is called Keys. And that was, I think, like a whole year after we released, actually 2 years after we released that first EP, because I think those 2 years really went in, like I said, like maybe augmenting my guitar skills and listening skills, working with a producer, another musician, like how to do that, how to be smart
And the
about like
business
what vocab.
skills.
Not even the business. I mean, business skills were coming after that. Are they're still coming? You know, like it's more of that, like being able to work with someone else, and not just like handing off the entire project to them, right? So like having the understanding how to express what you're actually thinking, right? About so that just that communication part. So yeah, so that song was called Keys, and it's like very different different vibe from like that first release. And we kind of like took some experiments because it was, I think, right after the pandemic, so we had all this like pent up, like, you know, we want to do things and make music, so let's just put it all into this one track. So then we just did everything, and in the end, like there's a part in the end that says we give everything away. So in my in the chorus itself, the ending is we give everything away, I sing. And then I just kind of had this idea, we had this idea together that maybe like we could, you know, have people speak this and then have people speak it, but maybe not just people, my friends and family. So then I went around recording the people in my house, and then you know, asking for recordings from people from school and you know, childhood and like all around. So it was like really more of like a project for me, and it was like
That
really,
kind of become
you know,
a choir
nice.
by itself.
Yeah, I know. So they weren't singing, they were speaking it. So that's what made it like interesting also, that everyone was in their own you know, tone or their own. I didn't give too much instructions on like the expression that they should use. So some people, it's a very short phrase, I guess it could be, you know, different. Some people said it in a dejected way, or maybe like a very strong way. Some people said
So
it
it's
in a small.
again a healthy diet of words.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was experiment plus passion song. And then the most recent one is kind of like a back to the roots cheesy love song. That's the latest release. That was written. It was a song that I swore. I mean, when I was little, I think when we were all young, we're like, what are all these love songs on the radio? I, as a different and cool person, will never write a love song. And then you're like,
And then
oh,
we end
okay.
up writing.
And then, exactly. So, and this song was not actually meant to be released. I just sent it to my partner. Like we hadn't seen each other for a long time. And then I was just like, you know, sad, and I was crying. And then I was like, no, let me harvest this. So, and then I
let me put this into a song.
Yeah, take my tears and put, yeah. And so then I wrote
Bollywood
it.
casting is going on.
And then and then I just sent it to him, and then obviously it was just like really special.
He added
and
more
then
tears.
he added some more, and so then I sent it around to like a couple other people who I thought maybe, you know, I
We
was
can
like,
also add one drop.
and then everyone was like,
Amalgamation
like
of tears. Huh?
yeah. And then everyone was like, why don't you release this song? And then I was like, why don't I release this song? That one thing led to another, and then it became the next release. Yeah.
That's cool. Interesting. Very, very interesting. This year, what are we expecting from Meera as an artist? EPs coming, singles coming, albums? What the hell is coming
So
up?
EPs, so I have enough songs for an album, but we were just talking about this. Rag and I had just sat down to record some instruments for like some of those songs, and then you know, we're just deciding that what we should release. And I thought that EP is kind of sufficient for now. Let's keep it all. I think albums right now are not maybe being listened to, unless you're at that point where people are like, I am waiting thirsty for your album, you know. So an EP, I think, is what we'll do, and split it into maybe 2 EPs or EPs and a couple singles, because there's about like 7 or 8 songs that are all like 80% done. So now I think we're just going to focus on 4 of them and release them. I'm really excited for these because unlike the other songs that we've released, these are all songs that we kind of have played in live shows and then did the arrangement for in those live shows. Because when you play it live, you realize what works, what doesn't work, right? And then when you go to record it, it's just a more like, I guess just it feels more alive. It feels like, it feels nice. So those, I'm really, really excited for those. The tracks themselves aren't live, but we recorded them, after we had done some touring. So that was really fun.
So this year you're also performing, touring India or outside? You're planning?
Yeah. So last year, this year I am touring. I am doing. We have a gig in Bangalore. Are you in Bangalore? No. Where are you?
I'm in Kolkata. I was in Bangalore the previous year. I went there and came back. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to Bangalore, and actually, Rag was like, "Hey, we should go to Kolkata also." So I will ask you after the interview. Yeah. So just planning a little bit of a March and April beginning tour. The rest of the year is the tour space has not been figured out yet because I've kind of been focused on getting the recording done, and then kind of according to that, I want to tour those songs and tour around those releases. So so that's I'm gonna do a bunch of release stuff and then the touring. So yeah, that's what we have to look forward to. It'll be fun.
Right now, you have a manager who is working with you, or you just do it all alone?
Yeah, I do. She's actually right. Let me get her.
Oh, please.
It's me.
Come on, don't kidding. Oh shit. I'll keep this as the intro.
Okay. Great.
Cool, good job. Hi, what's up? What's up, macha? Wow, that was cool.
I unfortunately don't have a manager. I've been contemplating it and stuff, but I want to really, really, again, like I'm saying, really be a little bit more fleshed out about like my brand or what things that I do want to do, things that I don't want to do before getting a manager, so I can kind of, explain that to them. I am in the near future going to be looking for a manager because I'm doing all that work now, and it's getting to be a little overwhelming. And the other side of that is that if you do get a manager, you will have more time to do that as an artist. Really focus on your art and creating and doing all of that. So
and let the gibberish be done by that idiot.
Not idiot, very smart person. Excuse me. I'm looking to hire a manager.
Yeah. Idiot in the sense that you handle all of the other stuff. I'll let me do my art.
No, honestly, that stuff is good.
The manager is smart because they know their profit.
Yeah. Chasing payments, all of that, I'm a little bit sick of. So and so it's draining, right? So to have someone who already has those skills would be a benefit, right? So so it's just something that when it is financially viable and when it's I think that's also the blockage, right? So I think it has to be a little bit more financially viable as well, which is why I'm trying to start performing more as well, so that it's all
feasible.
Connect. Feasible, yeah. Exactly.
Right. Really cool. The last question of the podcast, and I'll set you free otherwise. Again, you will peep out like this. Hi, I'm the CEO and founder of Meera Desai. You will shut the fuck up or not. You have to answer in 3 lines, okay? Just 3 lines.
Okay.
And then you have to shut up. 3 practical advices that you have learned from your experience that can work for all the other artists. 3 advice in 3 lines.
The first one is to listen more than you realize you have to. That means musically and advice-wise, and to yourself, and to the people who love you, not to the people who hate you. Then second, yeah, it is.
I mean, a bit, not that much, but a bit.
Okay. Second, I think really start to maybe form a community and reach out to people early on. I think maybe people feel that they have to be very insular while they're making their music, and then they go and show it to the world. But I don't think that's, I don't think that's the best way to go about it. I think let people influence you, and your voice will obviously be loud enough. Like if you listen to it, point one reference, um, and the advice and things you get from outside will just kind of help you more, right? So just make that community early on, seek people out. And three, I guess keep learning. Because a lot of people that I have met recently, I mean, all my friends, the ones that still have kept learning, stuck with their teachers, including me, like are just so, again, like I'm saying, spiritually and emotionally happy, right? So that learning process, that practice process really, really energizes you. So yeah, keep learning.
Well, what a fantastic way to end. For the people I'm saying, I'll leave all the songs and the links in the description. Please do support and listen and check it out. Once again, thank you so very much for joining, Meera. It was a fantastic chat.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye. Keep making music, huh?
You too.